Hey, Emer, welcome to the Education Next podcast. We have been discussing about having you since a very long time, and finally you are here. Please let us know about you to our audience so that they know what you do with respect to teens. So please take over.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, and I'm delighted to be here. My background studied psychology, then I worked in business for over 20 years internationally, and then I retrained as a behavioral change coach. And it seemed really obvious to me that a lot of the stuff we were doing with senior business leaders and elite sports stars was something that teenagers really needed today. And as a result of that, I've created something called the Q Pathfinder, which is a digital app which enables young people to understand who they are on the inside and why they feel the way they do, and really identify their natural skills and where they have gaps. And then I also created a coaching program called the 7Q Teen Reconnect program, which is about empowering them to have the psychological skills that are now needed to navigate the world we live in, because we know it's stressful. And even if we were to look at India, every 8 minutes a young person is lost to suicide. So we have to do something different. And for me, that's kind of my mission. And it's about helping parents, it's about helping families, because, stress, we all need a little bit of it. But if it's extreme and if it's constant, it's not our best friend.
Oh,
And just finally, I also wrote a book called Understanding Teen Stress and Anxiety, because I think for a lot of families, and certainly the ones I've worked with,
mhm.
they've struggled to know how to navigate it, how to manage it, and just to be able to create that connection they want within their families with their teenagers.
Absolutely. I think you have touched something which is so much needed at this point of time, where so many industries are getting disrupted, uh, you know, at the same point, right? For example, education is changing so many shifts already with AI. Also, young people are, they are learning, they have so many mediums to learn now. Then it was just, just teacher and parents. Now it is uh, quite a lot of things that children learn from. They have very different exposures. They are hearing every day about the changing situations in schools and colleges. Like I've also heard that colleges, uh, there are fewer admissions. There are jobs. People are getting laid off. Young people are getting laid off. There is a threat to entry level jobs as well, because entry level jobs are getting replaced, and that can definitely attribute to a lot of stress, I'm sure. And how do you think about this AI in various domains of life that more young people will face than older people?
I think it's really important that we visit this. I think technology is not something that we can avoid. I think it's something we should embrace, but we shouldn't also lose ourselves to technology. I mean, there's an amazing capacity in the human mind if we teach it new skills, if we teach it how to be creative, if we teach it how to work alongside AI. And, when you talked earlier about, you know, young people laid off and not finding jobs, my question is, why aren't we teaching them to look at the world and see where there are problems and then creating jobs for themselves, where they start to be entrepreneurial, where they solve the problems of today? For me, that's super important. I had somebody send me something recently, and it was a graduate in Ireland, and they got a job after many, months of applications and rejections, and they should have been a totally happy moment for them. And they soon realized, because they had to move to the city, that most of their money or half their money was going to go on renting and commuting. And as a result of that, there were no kind of social places they could go to that didn't seem to cost a lot of money. And then they're thinking, I'm really lonely.
Hmm.
And this isn't what I expected for myself. And they went through all the arguments in terms of, what was wrong, but they didn't come up with any major solution apart from to emigrate. And I'm thinking, how did you get from that dot A to this dot Z
Mhm.
because there's so much other stuff that you could do in between. And what that showed me was even though they had ticked all the performance boxes during the academic journey, they'd been to university, got all the grades, they hadn't learned leadership skills. They hadn't learned influencing skills. They hadn't learned being able to um, empower and network skills. They hadn't communicated their argument nearly well enough, and they were focused on the problem rather than the outcome they wanted to create. And these are the things we need to be teaching in education now. And I think if you can have those skills embedded in young people, then they'll work really well alongside AI because they'll ask it the right question and they won't expect it to do the work for them.
I think absolutely what you're saying is so right because but how the mindset
So
actually grows here, it's very much you listen and you do, right? It's just very one way kind of interaction in schools that generally kids have. um, and that's where I think that most kids don't learn to think for themselves, or they don't get the opportunity to understand themselves like what they would want, because it's always a race, right, to reach to the top by doing whatever best you can. It's grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and you just keep, and after a point of time I think it just becomes like you have to just achieve this to get there. And then again, the pressure from the society, from your family falls onto you, as in you completed this grade, now what are you going to do? So sometimes you don't even know what you want to do, but you have, because everybody is jumping on the this race, you also jump, you take some course, you might not understand yourself at that point of time. We're always in this rush, we get the job, and we get all those, we have to pay, for house, for everything, for, like you said, for commuting to jobs, and then the it keeps weighing. You have to pay the old loans for colleges, and then you just you're trapped into that rut, right? Life just keeps going on and on. Sometimes you just crash, you don't know what to do, you might grow with a family, and then you don't even know if this is what you have wanted, right? And I think this is something that happens to a lot of young people, and I'm sure you would have seen a lot of young, a lot of cases like that as well, where you might have seen people doing what they are not even interested in, right?
I have seen parents make their kids go on a journey that they felt was right for them because it was considered to be safe. And then they went through all that pain just to keep their parents happy, and ultimately they went off and did something else. I've seen young people come to me completely overwhelmed because there's over 20,000 different kind of jobs out there, and then there's all the sub layers underneath. The traditional routes for work, it's being eroded. And so applying the traditional way of getting a safe job, it needs to be thrown up in the air. And what really smart people do is they figure out who they are first. They work out what their strengths are and they play to them. They figure out where their gaps are in terms of their behavior, because we all have behavioral gaps, and they bridge those, and they then know the climate in which they will thrive. Because anyone who's in a climate where they feel they're thriving will perform. And you have to have well-being at the basis of that. So, what I say to parents or educators, don't make someone be a round peg in a square hole because you're never ever going to serve them, or they won't be able to have the well-being they need in order to perform. And ultimately, they'll get burnt out. They'll feel like it corrodes their soul. And I think we're in a really, really exciting time at the moment where so much education is available online.
Yes.
If we can teach our children how they like to learn,
Hmm.
that's something I certainly hope in the work I do.
Hmm.
If we can teach them to access um, information online in the right way,
Hmm.
nobody should be lacking in education. Even if you're only at Google stage, I mean, everything's there. You just need to have a critical thinking mindset to figure out what the truth is and what isn't. And so for me, it's a beautiful opportunity for parents to say to their kids, okay, my job is not to put my expectations on you, because if you go this route, we'll be safe. Because actually, that's not your role as a parent. Your role as a parent is to enable your young person to know what their talents and strengths are. And then, like a seed in the ground, you water that, you nurture it, you give it sunshine, and eventually that child will blossom. Um, if you are putting so much pressure on them to be someone they're not, just ask yourself, would you like someone to do that to you?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about what a positive relationship as an adult is that what you're giving to your child? Because they deserve better. They're here with the talents and strengths. Every single young person I've met has a talent and strength. They just don't know what they are often. And it's our job to help them find that.
Yeah.
And then they'll find their purpose. Then they'll find their motivation. And then they'll be their creative selves and often won't be looking for someone else to give them a job. They'll have figured out, I can do this. This is what I'm good at. This is where I can serve. Because when we can serve with purpose, then absolutely everything changes.
Yeah, you're right. But I think the main struggle comes with how do you likes or the journey that they want to take is safe. For example, if a child really wants to play cricket, for example, right? How do you know that this is the best path and that the child would like to do more of that and less of other things? But if they don't do the other things, which is the academics, well, then where would they land? They will not have a security. Who will take care of it? And so that's one reason that many parents are tempted to follow that path, right? Like you have to do good in schools. If you don't well in schools, then where do you see yourself landing, right? That's the major issue with most of them. Or either you have to be really courageous to or bold to break that thing for you and find your own whatever and take responsibility. But people are scared to take that responsibility because they think that what then if if I don't have the 10th certificate or 12th certificate or degree, whatever, you can't apply for jobs. What will you do then? So I think it's more about that people want to be in that safety net, right? So I think that's one of the biggest problem because many parents they
But I think what's really interesting about the world of work today, people can be let go at a drop of a hat, obviously, depending on where you are. A lot of people are living from one paycheck to the next. And I
Mm,
understand that parents want the best for their kids.
mm,
But it's also important to realize that if they have a natural talent, then that's where they're supposed to be. And if you don't give them the opportunity to engage in that, that's for me, that's a failure. I mean, I have a son who's dyslexic.
mm.
He can struggle with academics, but he's a natural sportsman. And I don't bring my fear to his life that he won't get A stars because he may in the future, but I don't put stress and pressure on him to say, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to you. I let him find his talent on the sports pitch. He could play cricket, he can play rugby, he can play hockey, he can do any of them. And for me, that's where he finds his flow. He's getting leadership skills while he's there, while he captains his side. He shows up as an ultimate professional on that pitch. He gives it his all. And I say to him, you need to be able to read and write. It's important. It's really important. And when we look at his exams, go and sit through, I go, okay, what's essential? He might have to do, 8 or 9 subjects. I say, well, these are the three you really need to focus in on because these are the three that are important. And look what, you know what? For now, we'll leave the rest because you don't want to peak too early. I don't want to put pressure on him now, even before he has a major exam. What's the point? That's not what childhood is supposed to be about. So we focus on small steps, learning. So learning doesn't become a battleground. So he can get some wins and then that builds his confidence. And so for me, that's really important. That's my job. I'm not here to add tons of stress to his life because I don't want him to be one of those statistics where he doesn't feel like life is worth living. For me, that's the hardest thing that you would ever have to face as a parent. And we know that those statistics are, you know, second the second thing that will take our young people away is suicide in the US, in the UK, and as I said, every 8 minutes in India, a young person's dying. We have to do something different. The system also, you will speak to employers and they will tell you a lot of kids coming out of that education system, they're not fit for purpose when they go into the world of work. They don't have the skills that they need. So for me, it's a balance.
Yeah.
Of course, you want them to get an education. But
Mm.
actually, if I was looking at someone's CV as
Mm.
an employer, and I've done that, I've worked in the world of work, and I could see someone who'd been entrepreneurial as a result of something they'd done, or there was a passion
Mm.
about their, in their lives, a hobby or something like that, where they could show commercial
Mm.
um, thinking, and they got X grades,
Mm.
then actually I would prefer them to be hired by me than someone who's an A star,
Mhm.
because that tells me they're more balanced, they're more rounded. And for me, that's super important. And if you can teach your kids to play to their strengths and have that map, which is what I've created, and then be able to identify where the gaps are, then you don't just get them doing loads of stuff that actually they don't need to do. For me, it's about having the right supportive data for your kid to get clarity on their purpose. Because what is stress? Uncertainty, not feeling in control, and then just not knowing how to connect the dots. We need to teach our kids to do that. If
Mm.
you think of some of the most successful people on the planet,
Mm.
Steve Jobs, he dropped out of university. So there's no point in me doing that. For me, it's about being able to be in a situation and regardless of what's going on outside you, you're focused on what it is that you want to create. Where real strength comes from.
Mhm. I think, whatever you mentioned, it makes so much sense that I think the first thing is trust, right? Trusting uh, your kids, their passion, and trusting the journey, being okay and comfortable, right, with uncertainty, right? We stress ourselves so much that, it will not be as planned. And I think that those experiments I started with myself and Adi, right, throwing ourselves in very, uh, unplanned uh, situations, right? Like we would not know what would happen, and then things would fall in place. But the crave, humans crave to be in, like, every day should be sorted out. Like you are sorted when you put your child into a school for 12 years, right? That your child will go to a school every day, you will pack lunch, you will receive, they will go do some sessions, and you're so sorted, so it looks so peaceful till the time that they go to school. And then suddenly you are thrown into a world of uncertainty where you don't know what's going to happen, what subjects they choose, what friends they will have in college, and then you freak out, then children freak out because you have been, your body, your system, your mental state has been used to that certainty, right? I see when Adi builds or is not successful in something that he's creating, there is frustration, there is, he doesn't know if it will work or not, then he starts, you know looking for solutions, he talks to people, I tell him to do this, I tell him to do that, let's, so because it's not, there is no formula that he can see in a book and find the solution, because everything that he builds or solves can be so different, right? So I think, yeah, it helps us build muscle, I would say, for both of us, because we don't know, it's not just a question where the answer will be back of the book. When we were young, I remember if we had a question and the answer would be on page number this, so we could quickly turn and get the answer. I think life was easy. at the time. It's not so anymore, right? In the sense that you can get your uh, essays written by ChatGPT, but it is not going to make much sense if you don't know the struggle to write it, right? How to paragraph it, how to, when I was doing my MPhil, I remember that we had to even learn where to put the comma and what letters had to be in capital and everything. So there was so much of learning and doing things, and now it's easy. I recently, yesterday, I was reading that there is an AI tool that can, uh, think like a researcher. It can basically do the entire research paper just like how a human does. It can go and check, it can do the retrospective analysis and compare it data and everything like a human in a faster pace, right? So there you go. You will have replacements for everything. So I think this is the best time to re-innovate, I guess. And uh, I think we should not be scared to learn at wherever point we are. And so we have 5 to 6 minutes. Do tell us more about the tool that you're creating. We will share the links in the comments for people to visit the tool. And if they want to get to know you more, we will share links about you as well. So tell us a little bit about what you're building.
Okie dokie. So, I guess I might go back a little bit just to say that when I was a teenager, even though I had a real interest in people, I had no clue what I wanted to do. And once when I in my 30s, when my marriage fell apart, I kind of woke up and thought, how did I get here? And all our lives are a series of decisions, right? And often we make a lot of decisions and we're unconsciously making them. We don't know what drives them. And it seemed really obvious to me that if someone had told me, as a result, subsequently when I did my work, my behavioral change, if someone had told me about this stuff when I was a teenager, I would have made much better quality decisions, because I would have had the awareness around it. So I suppose what my work is all about is developing self-awareness in young people. And believe me, they're open to it. They really want to know who they are. And it's about helping them understand how they operate in the world. Because if we understand what drives us, if we understand how we like to think and do things, how we like to engage with others, how we like to manage our emotions, which can be a big thing for a lot of teenagers, as we know, because of their brain, we it opens doors that we didn't even know were there. And so for me, that's what it is. It's about creating a foundation of inner knowing. For me, that's super important. And what I did was I created the Q Pathfinder app with other psychologists and amazing teams of coaches because I could see in the world that we were living in, young people are feeling overwhelmed. They're losing their sense of identity. They're being told to be X, Y, and Z, and they're just getting lost in the noise. And we need to give them that foundation to reconnect with who they are. And it looks at the 6 key areas they said they wanted help with. About me. Tell me more about me, so I can myself and so I can articulate how I feel. Tell me about what I need to help me with my confidence. Show me how I like to learn, because that's another major stress. Tell me how I react to stress. And the Q will look at 10 common stress factors, show you how you react to it in a good way, but also where your opportunity for growth is. It also looks at relationships, and then it also looks at careers. And I think the careers is an interesting one because, first of all, we don't go straight to jobs because there's 20,000 of them. I can't do is look at your career themes. So, how you're naturally predisposed to like to think and do things and navigate in the world, how does that relate to behaviors that you find in jobs? Because every job is a set of behaviors, and certain jobs have certain types of behaviors. So if you know what your themes are, that's a really powerful place to start because the world of work is going to change continually, rapidly. If you know what your base is, you can play to those strengths and find jobs that have those sort of behaviors. And then you also recognize where your gaps are. And for me, that's so important because then you can start to develop those. and not just feel like I just don't know why I don't like to do this or why I struggle with it. And then what I did was I also created a program around that self-discovery tool because I could also see there were other things young people struggled with, which was calming everything down. When we're calm, we make better decisions because we're more open to information in our midst. We also need to understand about limiting beliefs because we all have them and they operate unconsciously. We also need to know about mental resistance, which means that we want to do something, but we don't do it. We don't get up off the sofa. You know, when you know how that works, you recognize it, so it's not unconscious. We also need to know how to really set goals in a scientific way, because there's a lot of science behind setting goals, and you need to know what your risks are as well. So, and it's things like feedback, understanding boundaries, all those things that can impact us to stop us achieving well-being and being able to perform. And for parents, I've written a book and I've taken all my knowledge from my journey. Because believe me, there was lots of lessons along the way, and it's good to play that forward. I'm a mum of three as well,
Mhm.
and I've taken my psychology, what I've learned in the world of work, and also what I've learned, as a behavioral change coach for the last 8 years. And I thought, what is it that enables me to connect with these young people so quickly? What are the skills? And I've effectively put those in a book for parents and for anyone who works in that youth space. So you don't have to go through the journey I did. I've just taken the cream and given it to you. And for me, these are now essential skills for any adult in the world. And that means, what our kids need is what I call new, when they need good adults. And that's adults with upgraded skills to be able to connect with them so they don't feel frightened, to be able to show up as themselves and be able to speak their truth. And we know by having a good adult in a young person's life, they're much more likely to be able to succeed. And the missing one, higher levels of depression, higher levels of self-harm, higher levels of suicide. So every young person needs a good adult. And, that's part of something else I do as well, which is I train good adults in the world because the world has changed beyond recognition from what I had when I was growing up. And if we don't adapt our skills to navigate it, stress is going to make us unable to function and make poor decisions that will give us the complete opposite of what we want.
That's truly amazing for, I mean, addressing something which is so important at this point of time. I'm sure a lot of parents need help, right, in navigating how to deal with this kind of uncertainty because none of the parents are trained. There is no university, but somebody who shares their journey and the important things of what's happening around us can be really, really helpful. So thank you so much, Emma, for being here and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. I think it's very important. We'll catch up soon, and we'll share all the links that is necessary for anyone to reach out. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here.
So much for having me. I'm so grateful. I think you're on a beautiful journey with your son. I love the fact that you're so brave to put him in an environment in which he can thrive. And yeah, and I think you shine a light on that option for so many parents. So well done, you.
Thank you. Thank you.